Hello, everybody. Just want to make a clarification on if you've got family members that are wanting to watch our live stream. There's more than one Pine Hills Academy YouTube account, so if you used that search criteria to find it, YouTube Live, Pine Hills Academy, not Pine Hills Adventist Academy, but Pine Hills Academy, Roots Project 2024, you'll find it right away. Okay, so if you've got family that couldn't be here tonight that want to watch the live stream, go to YouTube Live, search Pine Hills Academy, Roots Project 2024, and you'll find it. Thank you.
Are we good? Okay, we're here. For those of you we're going to start the speeches in about 5 minutes roughly. We're going to let everyone get through line. But what I want to remind you of is we do have dessert. So if you haven't already, if you want to get up, go to the back and get your dessert at this point, go ahead and do that. Cake, whatever you need to the table, and we'll be starting somewhere in the next 5-10 minutes at the most, but about 7-8 minutes we'll be starting. If I could invite you, grab your dessert and head back to your tables. We're going to begin. Public speaking ranks among the top 3 fears of adults in the United States, and it's no different for teenagers. This evening represents the first time many of these students will speak formally in a public gathering of this sort. They've invested countless hours writing, revising, and rehearsing their speeches. So what is the Roots Project? For one semester, the students have focused on an ancestor of their choice. Yes, grandparents, you are now ancestors. That's your official title. They have written about family traditions. They have written about family recipes. They have conducted interviews. They have written poetry. They've written biographies. And tonight is the culmination of this project where students have crafted tribute speeches to honor a specific family member that they have researched. What I love about the speeches that you're going to hear is that they are as diverse as those of you who they talk about. The personality of the student speaking is blended with the personality of the person that they have chosen to honor. Each speech is unique, each one is special, no one is better than another. So tonight I want to give you a breakdown of some of the statistics that we have for the people who are being honored tonight. 11 grandfathers are being honored, 6 grandmothers are being honored. 6 grandparents have lived the immigrant story, pursuing the American dream. 1 grandparent never set foot on American soil. 13 grandparents are here with us tonight in person. 1 grandparent is watching on Zoom along with uncles, aunts, and cousins. 3 grandparents are deceased, which highlights even more the importance of what we do here this evening. This evening represents the culmination of a semester dedicated to exploring, learning, and celebrating our family roots. Thank you for honoring us with your presence this evening.
Maria Solobinka, or Baba as I call her, has always told me stories about when she lived in Ukraine. She's told me about the cold winters, the small wooden toys her dad made for her, and how, as a child, she'd make dolls from scraps of fabric and bringing them to life with her imagination. That love for creativity and simple things has stayed with her entire life. And it's just one small example of the kind of person she is, someone who finds joy and shares that joy with everyone around her. Baba was born on November 26, 1963, in Ukraine, into a hardworking family. Her father was a skilled craftsman, and her mother worked hard to take care of their home. They were a close-knit family, and their love was at the heart of everything they did. But life in Ukraine wasn't always easy. Under the communist system, wages were low, making it hard to make a living. The government controlled almost everything, including people's faiths. However, when the Soviet Union collapsed, it became independent. Things began to improve, wages increased, and the economy started to grow and rebuild. When Baba married Dido Ivan, they started their own family. One of the most difficult decisions my grandparents ever made was to leave Ukraine and move to America. Baba and Dido wanted a better future for their children, and they knew that meant leaving everything they knew behind. When they first arrived in America in 2002, everything was different. Baba didn't speak English very well, and the culture was new to her. Dido started working for a trucking business. My dad enrolled into high school and got a job. And for Baba, she stayed home and took care of the twins since they were younger. Baba enrolled into college and started to learn English, and slowly started adapting to this new lifestyle. In the early years of America, Baba and Dido found God. They embraced Christianity, and it became the foundation of their lives. She had shared stories of faith with me many times, teaching me about the importance of love, kindness, and to trust in God's plan. In 2008, Baba got very sick, and she prayed to God, asking for strength, afraid that she might not live long enough to meet her grandchild. But by God's grace, she recovered, and with a heart so full of gratitude, she said, "God's gift was so good to me that now I have 7 grandchildren. Growing up, I always looked up to Baba. She has shown me the true meaning of kindness, hard work, and faith. Her determination to build a better life for her family, overcome challenges, and always remain faithful to God is something I deeply admire. I've seen her work tirelessly, putting others before herself, and still finding time for her grandchildren, no matter how busy or how exhausted she is. I have many cherished memories with her, whether shopping, cooking together, or just talking. I appreciate her ability to stay faithful and present, even when life is busy. Love you, Babushka."
How many states have you been to? My grandpa has not only been to 40 states, but has also lived in 8. He loves traveling everywhere with his family, whether it's the United States or other countries. He's also been to 30 countries, his favorite being a cruise to Italy, Greece, and Spain. My grandpa, Michael Thompson, was born in York, England at a very young age. He grew up not having a lot of money, but he made the best of it. Mike walked about a mile to school every day because cars were quite expensive. He finished high school at 15 and worked as a butcher, a deli manager, and an assistant in a hardware store. He also started a rock band and was the lead singer. This was around the time that the Beatles were also getting started with their band, but his band was way better and definitely more famous. His band played everywhere in northern England. When Mike was 22, he became a Christian and decided to quit the band. He went to nursing school. While there, he met my grandma, Helen. Helen, who had also been training as a nurse. They got married in 1972, and a couple years later, they had their first daughter, my Aunt Rachel. After a few years of working as nurses, Mike and Helen moved to Newbold College so Mike could study theology. It was here where my mom, Debbie, was born. 4 years later, he took his family to Belize to be missionaries. While in Belize, Mike and Helen ran a jungle clinic and lived in a hut without running water or electricity. After a couple years of mission work, they moved back to England. Mike opened up a vegetarian restaurant in London and became the nurse and director of a health retreat. In 1978, Mike took his family on a 6-week holiday to the United States, and they're still here. Mike went to school in Virginia for a couple years before moving west and working in Kansas, Oregon, and eventually settling in Rocklin, California. He has been one of the associate pastors at Sacramento Central Adventist Church since 1999. One day, he might retire. My grandpa loves God, his family. He loves helping the community and whoever needs his help. He always visits people in jail and those sick in the hospital. He also enjoys preaching at his church. Thank you for always being there for all the birthdays, Christmases, and important events in my life, and for teaching me to say please and thank you. Thank you, Grandpa.
My grandpa was born during the Second World War on March 27, 1942, in a town called Cuenca, Batangas in the Philippines. The sounds of bomb shells and gunfire throughout the day and night were the normal sounds that he would hear for the first few years of his life. At the age of 2, his parents would move him from in and out of bunkers because of intense shelling. These were the stories my grandfather was told by his mother and father as he grew up. Arturo, my grandpa, was the oldest of 2 girls and 2 boys. Unfortunately, his father died from a heart attack early into his life. With his father now gone, his younger siblings looked up to him as the father figure. Despite the struggles and hardships of his childhood, these shaped him into the person he is today. I love to hear stories about my grandpa's life. One of my favorite stories he's told me was about his love life. My grandpa was a frequent flyer in the dating world. He had a lot of girlfriends. But while he was working at a Boy Scouts training program, he laid eyes on someone he was most certain he would spend the rest of his life with. Her name is Teresita. They went on many dates and ended up marrying her. She's my grandma. My favorite story, though, was when he took her to a movie theater to watch The Graduate. My grandpa was always the one to make the first move and express his feelings. My grandma, on the other hand, was not the same. She brought a safety pin with her to the theater. Whenever my grandpa tried to make a move or got too close, my grandma would pull out the pin and prick him. This was something he was not familiar with. None of his exes would do this to him before. And believe me, while he was dating my grandma, he would get pricked often. But this didn't stop my grandpa. He continued to court and pursue my grandma, and on November 20, 1972, they got married. This truly shows how deeply his love is for her. My grandpa never fails to extend his love to all his grandchildren and children as well. Spending time with my grandpa is a great deal of fun. Quality time is something I appreciate and my grandpa also appreciates. But this time, when we were spending time together, I wasn't feeling it. My grandpa was showing me his art of basket weaving. I was in the 3rd grade and far from an artist. I knew I couldn't weave a basket. Although I struggled to craft a basket, my grandpa was persistent and believed in me that I could do it. Eventually, I was able to finish my basket because my grandpa didn't give up on teaching me. My grandpa taught me a very important lesson that day. Even though I didn't like basket weaving, my grandpa's guidance was all I needed to keep going. My grandpa always paints a positive picture of things I should take account of to be a better person. Throughout the times I've spent with him, I've learned he never takes anything for granted. He is always the first person to greet me happy birthday. He never fails to greet all his children and grandchildren on a holiday, making sure we all know we have a special place in his heart. Keeping Christ in the center of his life is huge to him. He says, a family that prays together stays together. My grandpa has taught me to enjoy and appreciate the small things in life. He always leaves a long-lasting impression of positivity on those who are fortunate enough to meet him. His hard work and loving character shows all the time when I'm with him. Most importantly, he is someone who puts God first in his life. He is someone my family can agree who wholeheartedly serves the Lord. He is someone who still impacts me today and someone I want to be like in the future. Thank you, and I love you.
Picture yourself just starting your teaching career and then making the decision to move to the other side of the world, leaving your career behind for a country that is completely different from anything you've ever experienced. This is what my grandma, Yu Byunghwa, whom we call Jaime, went through when she was only 23 years old. Jaime was raised in Seoul, Korea, and was the second born of 5 children. She grew up in a wealthy family due to her father's achievements as an engineer. He helped invent a component of the automatic opening door. Her family had a maid and a cook, which gave her the time to spend her daily life going to school and practicing piano diligently. That was her job growing up. Jaime graduated from Samyuk Adventist High School, and from there, she went to an all-women's college where she got a master's degree in food and nutrition. Samyuk Adventist University offered her a job as a professor that she accepted. Shortly after Jaime started working, she was set up on a blind date by her mom, where she met my grandfather. He was visiting from the United States. They soon fell in love and moved to the United States together. This was a strange experience for my grandma because she was the first out of her family to move to the United States. She didn't know a word of English. Shortly after moving, she got married and had my uncle and my mom. She learned English, and she became a pharmacist technician to help my grandpa, who was a pharmacist with his own business. After her daughter, my mom, and my uncle had her grandchildren, she decided to retire. Jaime spent so much time with her grandkids, which include me, my 4 siblings, and my 2 cousins. One of my favorite memories of when I was younger was sneaking into her room early in the morning and climbing on her bed to ask her to make blueberry muffins with me. She always willingly got up to help me make them, and I asked her a lot. I also love to watch her in the kitchen and help her make delicious Korean food, along with spending lots of time with her grandkids. Another thing that my grandma has pursued is her love for traveling. Traveling has always been one of Jaime's greatest passions. She has visited many places, and among them are Japan, London, Australia, and Peru. She has a collection of spoons from each country she has visited. I remember when I was about 7 years old, I asked Jaime about each one. Kneeling on a chair in front of her display on the wall, I pointed to each one, asking about where it came from and about the meaning of each. Listening to her talk about all her adventures made me want to work hard so I could also travel the world when I'm older. Along with traveling, Jaime has consistently played piano. She still plays piano for her church every Sabbath and spends countless hours practicing. Throughout her life, Jaime has always shown dedication to God, her family, and whatever job she has at the moment. I am so grateful for all the support and encouragement from her, and I wish to be more like her every day.
My grandfather, Vincent Emanuel, was born on January 16, 1939, on the little island of Cospicua, Malta, located south of Sicily. He experienced World War II firsthand as a little kid, went through the British Royal Air Force in his early adult years, and moved 2 times without any guidance from his family. At the age of 17, he and his siblings took an exam that would ultimately determine what their future career would be. Sadly, he didn't pass this exam, and so he worked on a dockyard near his home in Cospicua. 2 years later, my grandfather had enough of his dockyard job, and he decided to join the British Royal Air Force. At the age of 19, he gathered the courage and perseverance to join the Royal Air Force, which was extremely difficult for him since he didn't have any guidance from his family, and he had to leave home to go to the United Kingdom. He was able to join the Royal Air Force because, at the time, Malta was under the rule of Britain. His courage and perseverance are a few of the traits I admire about him. 8 years later, my grandfather left the Royal Air Force. He and his wife made the move to Canada because in Canada, there were much more opportunities for economic stability, and living in a first world country makes it easier to have a family. Canada was much, much different than Malta. Not only is Canada a much, much bigger country than Malta, Canada also gets a lot more snow, which was challenging to my grandfather and his family. Both perseverance, they made it work. While he and his wife were in Canada, my grandfather worked at Douglas Aircraft as a sealer. While there, he had 2 children. Then, at the age of 35, with a little more money in his pockets than their last move, he, his wife, and 2 children moved to the United States of America. He got a job at United Airlines as a hydraulic engineer, and then he was promoted to inspector. He then had another child, and then about 21 years later, he retired. His perseverance, courage, openness, and innovation all contributed to his decision to join the Royal Air Force and then move to 2 different countries. All of those traits are why I chose him for this project. And that is why my grandfather is one of the most important people in my life. He has taught me and my family a lot of valuable life lessons. Some of these lessons are that being innovative, hardworking, and selfless will bring success to you. My family is very hardworking, innovative, and selfless, and I believe we got all of these traits from my grandfather. These traits my grandfather has given to our family has shaped it to be what it is today. They are one of the reasons why I admire my grandfather so much, and I would like to pass them on to future generations. My grandfather has changed my perspective on life and the values I hold. He has taught me a lot of important life lessons. Whenever I would be stuck trying to do something, I remember that he would come up to me and help me, and through the process of helping me, he would teach me a more efficient way of doing the task. On top of my grandfather's personality and life values, these are a few of my favorite things about my grandfather. I love my grandfather.
Hello, everybody. Tonight, I would like to tell you about my maternal grandmother. Her name is Barbara Leonard. In my family, we call her Tata. Tata was born in Hinsdale, Illinois in January 1951. She is the third child of 4 siblings, just like my mom and me. Her influence has a major impact on my life. She is strong, hardworking, kind, and follows God with all her heart. Sadly, she was unable to make it this evening because she lives all the way out in Cleveland, Tennessee, near Southern Adventist University. Tata has been an amazing part of our family. We typically see her once or twice a year when she visits us or we visit her. When she comes down to stay with us, she spends time with us as a family, going on walks at the river and whatever we go see and do while she is with us. One of her favorite activities is playing board games like Catan or giving and receiving back rubs. We usually visit her in Tennessee around once a year. While at her house, she has us help with her garden, picking vegetables like potatoes and beans, and tending to the weeds in the hot, humid Tennessee air. That's why I'm so tall, because she has taught me to work hard and eat lots of homegrown veggies. After taking the spoils of her garden into the house, we wash and clean them before we help her cook hearty, delicious meals that we eat every day while we are there. Though this sounds nice and all, what has made her who she is today are the many hardships in her life. Growing up, she moved around a lot, never being able to fully settle in one place and never having a grounded community of friends. By the time she was in 12th grade, she had moved 13 times. She has been in 3 different marriages. Her first husband was not good to her and her growing family. And her second husband was a man whom she loved, but ended up dying in an accident. Between her first and second marriages, she was a single mother with 3 kids and no support, trying to figure out how to work and care for her children. Then, on one terrible, horrible, awful day, her 12-year-old daughter, Michelle, was murdered in a park, causing deep sorrow for Tata, my mom, and her sister. But even through all these hardships, she has kept on going with her life and helping others. Though Tata is very persevering, another one of her best qualities is her hard-working attitude. When she was in her second marriage, she began her own business, taking care of elderly people in an adult family home. As well as starting a successful business, my grandma, for the majority of her daughters' lives, raised them as a single mother between difficult marriages. She married her third and best husband, Wyatt Leonard, in 1995. Third time's a charm. I have always known him as my Grandpa Wyatt. As an architect, he and Tata built their current house, a gigantic 2-story mansion on 100 acres in Old Fort, Tennessee. This is where they planted the massive garden we slave away at in the summer. Tata has made God a major priority in her life. Through all of her hardships, she continues to follow him and praise him. Even when she was alone with her children on winter nights, so cold they could see their breath inside their house because they could not afford heating for it, God provided and kept them safe and continues to keep them safe today. Even after Tata's daughter, Michelle, was murdered, she placed her trust in God and was able to get through the hard times. Through her divorces, she kept praising him and continued to be blessed by him. Today, she has her very own successful granola business called Blackberry Hills Bakery. a large house with lots of property, loving children and grandchildren, a wonderful husband, great friends, and an amazing church family. All because she continues to give her life to God. My grandma now leads an outstanding life, where she is involved in outreach to her community, volunteering at the church's food bank and ministering to Afghanistan refugees in her community. She has gone through many trials and tribulations with her family and personal struggles, but because of her perseverance, hard work, and love for God, she is here, not really, with us today as the extraordinary, loving mother, grandmother, and friend. If not for her, I would not be here at Pine Hills because she is the one paying for my tuition. I love her dearly and look forward to spending this Christmas and the rest of her incredible life with the best grandmother I could ask for.
Can you picture yourself meeting your future spouse at only 3 years old? Well, my grandma, Shirley Chang, always says her marriage was predestined. She's known her husband, Jim, for as long as she remembers. My grandma, or as I call her, Popo, was born in Oahu, Hawaii, and she was the second child of 4 kids. She grew close with her mom, Grace Ching, who stopped working as a dietitian when she had kids. Her mom took care of her, and my grandma has shown that same kindness to everyone around her. Whether it's little things like picking me up from school or bigger things like taking my family to Fiji, she always seems to do the nicest things for everybody. One of her earliest memories is nearly drowning. She was at the beach and her mom was taking care of her younger brother, Victor. My grandma, only 3 years old, rushed into the water, excited. The water rushed over her and she started gagging and choking. Eventually, somebody saved her, and ever since she has been afraid of the water. Everyone is surprised because if you know her, she's energetic and always wants to go snorkeling or swimming. My Popo grew up Adventist and started going to Golden Gate Academy in 1958. She was driven and hardworking and actually took high school in only 3 years. Then my grandma moved on to college where she eventually learned to swim. She loves caring for others and helping those in need, so she started nursing. Her parents didn't approve and wanted her to be anything else except for that. She really wanted to be one and continued, persevered, and eventually started working. My grandma is energetic and outgoing, 2 things that I think make somebody really fun to be around. When I was littler, she always used to play football and baseball with me, not showing any signs of getting tired so I could keep playing. My Popo is always ready to do any fun activities with my family, like going shopping, traveling, and even to this day, skiing with us. Her joy and excitement about everything in life is what makes her such a great role model to me. Another thing I really admire her is her trust in God. Her mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at a pretty young age. My Popo wanted to take care of her, but she didn't have much room in her house with 3 kids. My grandma said that one of the hardest things in her life was watching her mom go downhill and realizing that she couldn't do anything about it. She has shown me that even though hard things will come up in your life, trusting in God and realizing that He has your back can change everything. She strives to be a great example of God's character, and I think that is definitely true. Popo, you have shown God's love, kindness, forgiveness, and a million other things I could be listening for hours. You and Papa have had such a positive impact on me, and I'm so grateful that you can be part of my life.
My grandpa, Ronald Echeverry, was born on August 27, 1964, in Burbank, California. He is the middle child of a family of 5. My grandpa was a wild child who loved to play sports and mess around with others. He was also a very intelligent child who excelled in all of his classes and loved to learn new things. After high school, my grandpa went off to Pacific Union College to study biology. Later, he transferred to Loma Linda University to study to become a doctor. He graduated with a degree in biology. His dreams of becoming a doctor, however, didn't work out because of other hardships in his path. From there, he went on to become a commercial insurance agent. He became a very successful one, too. That is also where he met my grandma Christine Hayden, now Echeverry. They dated for a while, then decided to get married after attending another person's wedding at the church that they went to. He proposed to her while they were sitting on the couch after talking after they got home from the wedding. A couple years later, they had their first child, Tammy Echeverry, aka my mom. My grandpa is a fun and loving guy who is very devoted to God. He loves to teach Sabbath school and church so he can teach people more about God's character. He is always telling me that my best life is a life with God. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, hold on, I'm gonna start that over again. My grandpa is a fun and loving guy who is very devoted to God. He loves to teach Sabbath school and church so he can teach people more about God's character. He is always telling me that the best life is a life with God, although he never forces me to go to church. He lets me make my own decisions for myself. He wants me to experience God in my own way and not through somebody else's view of him. My grandpa's favorite hobbies are to fish, backpack, and take road trips. One good memory I have that didn't happen long ago is when we went to Bishop to fish Convict Lake. We only caught 2 fish the whole time, but it was still a fun experience. Before we left for our trip to Bishop, we took a trip to Bass Pro and bought a bunch of fishing things from there that we probably did not need, but it was just fun. I was also happy because I know my grandpa loved every second of it, and so did I. He also loves to garden. He has always had a garden wherever he has lived. I remember when we lived in SoCal, and he had a spot in the community garden, and we would go almost every day and plant new things and pick the vegetables off the plants. Another thing that my grandpa likes is to help me with my homework. Whenever I need help or don't understand something, I can always rely on my grandpa to help me not just finish it, but also learn how to do it. My grandpa has had a very interesting life. He has so many cool stories that he has shared with me, although my favorite one that he told me was about when he was in junior high. After school, my grandpa, his older brother, and his friends would go to the train tracks and find large rocks. Then they would put the rocks on the train tracks and hide behind a large metal building next to the train tracks. The reason that they did this because when the train ran over the rocks, they would shoot off and hit the large metal building that they hid behind, and they would make very loud sounds as they hit the building. They did this until they got caught by the railroad police and were taken home. Then he had to face his parents after this incident. Grandpa, you are the funniest person I've ever met. All I have for you is love and respect, and I know that you would give the same back to me. You have taught me so much and supported me through whatever I want to do, even if it's crazy. I love spending time with you and can't wait to do more. Also, thank you for trying to help me see God and realize how important He is in my life. I would not have experienced as many things in my life without you taking me places and teaching me things I didn't know. I'm glad that I've been blessed with such a great grandpa who has raised me to be respectful and persevering. I couldn't have asked for a better grandpa than you.
My grandma's life has been anything but easy. Nelmi Ortiz was born and lived for most of her adolescence in Honduras. During her childhood, her parents were abusive, constantly making her feel insignificant. Although this was hard on her, it helped her learn how to stay positive even when things were terrible. My grandma is one of the most positive people I know, and I know it's been a result of her hard trials throughout her life. Her life has been very difficult, and to many people, it would seem impossible to find joy in anything. Of course, my grandma could have chosen to go through her life sad and depressed, but she chose to find happiness in anything she could. One of these ways was through her love of soccer. Even now, she remembers playing soccer with her friends to be one of her best childhood memories. Looking for ways to escape her negative household, she found it with a man offering marriage. She was married at the age of 14 and had her first child by the age of 15. She had to take care of all her new household and wifely duties. I am currently 15, and if I'm putting myself in her shoes, I don't think I could have handled those responsibilities as bravely as she did. Nelmi finally got the chance to turn her life around and move to the United States at the age of 22. The move was a struggle as she was left alone with 3 young children and next to no money. But because of God and her perseverance, her family was able to scrape through and eventually make it to the USA in 1994. This was just the beginning of a new life for my grandmother. Her life continued to have ups and downs, but throughout it all, her faith in God is what carried her through. Although people in her life were not always the most reliable, she knew God was always there to support her. Now she makes sure to spread God's goodness to others and to ensure that they know the love that awaits them if they only turn to Him. I look up to my grandma for many reasons. Her perseverance, endurance, compassion, and kindness are just a few of her traits that I love so much. But most importantly, I see God in her actions each and every day. Her faith is unfathomable. She turns to God even when it seems like He is not present. Because of her experiences, she has become closer to Him and found an unbreakable relationship with God. I can only hope to achieve the amount of faith and love she has. Te quiero tanto, Mom.
Have you ever heard of someone that was born in a cave? Well, I have. My grandpa, Darrell Crane, was born July 29, 1964, in Bowden Cave of Fresno, California. At least, that's what his birth certificate says. It's also what he likes to tell others. When my grandpa was adopted, his step-parents did not want him to know that he was adopted. So that's where that birth certificate comes from. Actually, he was born at the Queen of Angels Hospital in Los Angeles, California. My grandpa has always been really good friends with the Lord, and he really enjoys helping others. So he went to school at Loma Linda University to be a paramedic. He met my grandma, whom we call Bestamore, while working there. At first, my grandma didn't want anything to do with Darrell, but my grandpa kept asking her out, and she finally gave in. After becoming a paramedic, my grandpa went on to be a firefighter. He worked as a firefighter in San Bernardino County for almost 30 years before the county started paying him for him to stop coming back to work. After all this, my grandparents moved up to Auburn, California to live closer to us and take care of my great-grandparents. I'm very grateful to them for making this decision to move up here and be a part of my life. My life would be completely different without my grandpa around, and I'm so grateful for him. My grandpa does everything he can to be a part of whatever activity I'm doing, whether it's driving me to a boring field trip or bringing me to the dirt bike store to look at bikes and riding gear. He's even willing to bring me to Bass Pro to look around at camping and fishing gear. That's a trap, by the way. You'll be there for hours. He learned that the hard way. He's also a good friend to me and a good person to talk to. My grandpa is always willing to listen to me jibber-jab about my opinions or stupid answers about the most random topics you can think of. But he's always supportive of my ideas, and he knows a lot about motorcycles, which I enjoy talking to him about. My grandpa was a firefighter for almost 30 years of his life. He loved his job so much, and he has some pretty awesome stories. One story I just heard recently is how there was a gas leak in his town, so they had to dig a hole just big enough for him to fit down in. They tied a rope to his ankles and slowly lowered him down to the shutoff valve. He said this was back before safety was a thing, because if something had sparked while they were all huddled around this hole, things would have turned out a little differently. My aunt is also a firefighter, and they are both reasons I want to be one when I am older. The impact my grandpa has had on my life is huge. He's been there for almost all of my milestones while I've been growing up. He has been there for me during very many lows in my life and many highs, and he is always willing to help me with anything. He drops whatever he is doing to come and help me and has canceled many plans to help out with things. For example, he bowls with his friend Eric every Thursday, and he has canceled that before for me many times, leaving Eric lonely without his bowling buddy. Papa, I want to thank you for all of the sacrifices you have made to be there for me. I hope I can learn to carry forward your love, not only for your family, but also your love for Jesus. Thank you for setting a good example for me. You are always trying to show me what God would want me to do, and thank you for taking me to do lots of fun things I probably would have never done without you, like going to Disneyland or teaching me how to golf. And then the murders happened.
This is a speech honoring one of the biggest pieces of my very large puzzle of a family. She is the eldest of 3 siblings, mother of 2, and my grandmother. She's strong-hearted and determined, humorous and sincere, and she deserves all the recognition for everything she's done for our family. My Mimi, Karen Amato, was born with a spirit of creativity and selflessness that has been the foundation for the amazing person she is today, and her characteristics shine through the many stories of her life. When Mimi was little, she and her cousins would perform skits and small plays in their backyard, using a clothesline and a sheet as a backdrop. The performance itself didn't cost anything to watch, but Mimi put her little brother in charge of selling cups of grape Kool-Aid for 5 cents. The acts had speaking and singing roles and were taken quite seriously when performed. But after every performance, Mimi and her cousins would spend the rest of the day laughing as they cleaned up the aftermath of their play. With Mimi's imaginative personality and directing skills, there was never a dull moment in their neighborhood. While Mimi enjoyed having fun and playing games, she still recognized the importance of rules. She rarely got into trouble as a young girl, usually staying within boundaries. But one time, when Mimi was in 8th grade, Mimi and her friends decided to skip band to hang out in the rec room. They were having fun, laughing and chatting, when suddenly they heard footsteps and the sound of the principal's keys jingling in the hall outside. Mimi and her friends ended up getting caught by the principal, and they each got a slap on the wrist as punishment. After that day, Mimi vowed never to skip class again, even if the class was boring. Mimi first went to high school at Bakersfield Academy for 2 years, where she worked at a construction corporation during the summer. Then switching to Newbury Park Academy for her last 2 years of high school, where she worked as the English teacher's grader. She even joined the surfing club, though she never actually did that much surfing. When Mimi graduated high school, she went to Pacific Union College for 2 years before transferring to Loma Linda University to learn gross anatomy and physical therapy. While she was at PUC, however, she met the man who would soon become the love of her life, Thomas Amato. They would end up getting married in Daphne Chapel at PUC on December 19, 1971, only 6 months after they first started dating. After she and Tom got married, Mimi decided to drop out of her classes at Loma Linda in order to settle down and build a family. This dream soon came true when Mimi's first child, Thomas Amato Jr., aka my dad, was born. And Mimi's second child, Christy Amato, was born 2 years later. Little did Mimi know, but this was the seed that planted my very large family tree. Mimi enjoyed her simple life with her husband and 2 kids, first living in Fort Bragg, where she made memories with her family, like being introduced to the volunteer fire department's siren, or taking my dad and Aunt Christy to the Tootsie Roll store down the street. Then, 3 years later, Mimi and her family moved to St. Helena, where they've been ever since. In the year of 2005, Mimi lovingly watched her son fall in love and get married, standing proudly beside him on the happiest day of his life. And only a year later, she watched her daughter walk down the aisle as well. Mimi now has 5 grandchildren, 1 being myself, and lives happily with her husband in their small house. She's always willing to help with whatever form of chaos our family spring on her, whether it be a spur-of-the-moment yard sale, a large family reunion, or a holiday dinner party. She's always happy to be there to assist. Over the years, you have taught me many things through stories and experiences. You have shown me how to always be funny, like during birthday parties where you've helped Aunt Christy sing raps or poems, and whenever you make jokes back at your brother Mark. You've taught me how to get over my fears by forcing me on terrifying rides at amusement parks, like the roller coaster Defiance at the Glenwood Caverns Park while we were in Colorado. And you've also taught me how to work hard to reach a goal, and that the reward is always worth the effort. Though it seems we take the things Mimi does for granted, the truth is we appreciate everything she's done and is doing for our family, and I will be forever grateful for everything she brings to my life. She's the backbone of our family, and nothing can ever compare to how much she means to me and how much I love her.
Consider what it'd feel like to be 100 feet in the air, perched on a small pole you could slip off at any moment, held on by nothing but a buckle on your body. Well, that's what my grandpa did for many years, risking his life as an electrician at Sacramento Municipal Utility District, or better known as SMUD. My maternal grandpa always wanted to give help to his family with their financial struggles. At just 9 years old, he saved his money and bought a lawnmower, using it to charge people for cutting their grass. The dedication and work ethic he showed displayed the man that he is today. My grandpa worked tirelessly his whole life, even deciding to go to college in his 30s. Because of his desire to learn more, while pursuing his thirst for knowledge, he says that sometimes when changing classes, he would pass by his oldest daughter. Well, he took on many jobs at a young age, jobs that would seem quite unusual today, like going door to door selling brooms. Where was I at? Hold on. He took on many jobs. Oh, shoot. He missed out much of his fun and of his teenage years because he prioritized work. His final job was at SMUD, where he worked for 34 years. With a company that deals with electricity, accidents are inevitable. One time, my grandpa climbed up a pole to make repairs, but a dispatcher forgot to turn off the electricity. When he opened the switch, 6,900 volts of electricity ran through his body. He fell unconscious for a few minutes, but thankfully, he didn't fall off the pole because he hung on by just his buckle. Leaving him dangling in the air, people saw him nearby and came to help him. When he regained consciousness, he would dust off himself and he acted like he was fine, insisting that he just didn't need help. I learned that time he just doesn't like others to help him. My grandpa isn't just a hard worker. He's also a family man. He loves spending time with his family, especially on holidays like Christmas and Easter. He gives gifts he carefully picks out to ensure everyone enjoys them. But Easter seems to be his favorite holiday because he hides the eggs in really high spots so the kids just can't reach them. And then he kind of just laughs at them. He doesn't really help. But he still makes me laugh to this day. And I don't know, he's just a funny guy. He's also incredibly competitive. Can you really just not let me win one game of ping pong? Unbelievable. When I started this assignment, I really didn't know much about my grandpa's life. But through all the stories he told me over the phone, I learned just how hard he worked to get where he is today. When I think of him perched on a small pole, hundreds of feet above the ground, I realize that he didn't just have his strength in his work, but in his heart too. He also taught me that life has many risks, but love and perseverance will keep us grounded together.
In the year 1980, my grandfather, Bully Nagasa, was arrested. And what, you may ask, was his crime? It was helping people. In the 1980s, the Derg, a military dictatorship, ruled Ethiopia. During this time, Ethiopia experienced political strife as well as political division. Whenever a political party would get in power, they would discourage the other parties from trying to take their power from them by eliminating known people from those groups. As a result, the people who were part of the other parties would often hide from the government. So, my grandfather would take these people in and give them shelter. The government, however, soon found out what he was doing and had him arrested and put in prison for 5 years. Never one to back down from a challenge, my grandfather would help people when times were rough. Bully Nagasa was born in the Tobi region of Boji Dermji in Walega, Ethiopia, on March 25, 1944. When he was growing up, life wasn't easy. He was born to a single mother in a rural countryside province where there were no opportunities to get an education. However, due to his perseverance and determination, he was able to go to school. But it wasn't easy. Many people at a young age probably want to run away from school. That wasn't my grandfather. He did the exact opposite. When he was 9 years old, he decided he wanted to get an education, and he resolved in his mind that nothing would stop him. Nagamte was the nearest city that had a school. However, he didn't have a car, and his mom didn't want him to leave her. Despite this, my grandfather embarked on the journey to Nagamte on foot. On his way to Nagamte, he had to cross a river and fight through the heat and dust. Nonetheless, one dirty bar and a lot of miles later, he arrived in Nagamte. Since good education wasn't certain, my grandpa's appreciation for it grew, and eventually it became one of the things he valued most. As a parent, he made sure his children received a good education. He did this by sending all 6 of his kids to private schools in Ethiopia, which wasn't financially easy for him. Character consists of several attributes. For my grandpa, one of his main attributes was definitely the view he had about the importance of education, but that's just one. My grandpa was also kind and benevolent. Around lunch hour, his house would be filled with people. The reason being, he would invite several colleagues and people who were hungry to eat at his home. Because he showed benevolence to everyone he met, over time, he made a lot of good friends who later supported his family when he passed away at the age of 50. His passing left a hole in the hearts of several people, especially the ones who really knew him, like my mom. His death was one that shouldn't have happened, but occurred anyway due to the poor healthcare system in Ethiopia. From the day of his birth to the day of his death, my grandpa underwent several character-shaping crucibles. The experiences that my grandpa went through molded him into a person who's left behind a positive impact on the life of his family and the people around him. His kindness, determination, bravery, and the value placed on education were what made him him. Even though my grandpa is not with us and I never met him, his character is one I still look up to and can only try to emulate.
My grandpa was very popular with the ladies. Instead of calling him handsome or good-looking, to all the girls, he was considered pretty. One time at a church event, he had dropped his pen on the floor, and a crowd of girls ran to pick it up for him. They all ended up getting in a fight, and the thing that they were trying to pick up ended up breaking. Still, after all of that, he only chose my grandma. Yuri McCullough, my grandpa, was born on January 1st, 1945, in St. Catherine, Jamaica. Yuri died almost 21 years ago at the young age of 59, so I never got to know him personally. But just from the stories I've heard about him, I already know that he was a good person. He started working in the field of construction when he was 13 years old, and later on, when he was older and had all of his experience, he and his buddies would go around building mini apartments for the homeless people in the village. He loved doing this because not only did he get to help people in need, but he was also honoring God. Another way he would do service would be by giving people in the village rides to church. Now, my grandpa didn't actually have much money to begin with, and he was kind of poor. But you know what he did? He saved up enough money to buy a school bus that he would use to pick up huge groups of people at a time to take to church. That's how dedicated he was to helping others. His little bus rides didn't just stop at church. He would offer village kids a ride to school in that bus as well, so their parents didn't have to stress about them walking. When my mom was in school, she and her siblings would get annoyed because he would offer random kids a ride to school and then make her and her siblings walk. But they later got used to it because they realized it was for a good cause. He has had many great accomplishments in his life. He did construction, he built houses for the homeless, and I'm sure there were many more. But I think that one of his most important accomplishments was that he and my grandma were able to manage 12 kids. I mean, that's definitely a lot of children to take care of. And all of his kids turned out to be such well-educated people. So he and my grandma obviously did something right. Personally, I would say that my grandpa's life is a prime example of what modern Christians should be like today: humble, God-fearing, and hardworking. He lived his life caring for others more than he did himself, and I can tell that he has set a really good example for my family members. Even though I never personally got the chance to meet him, I feel like I know him through the qualities he instilled in my mom and her siblings. His legacy lives on in their kindness, hard work, and dedication to the family. Although he's no longer here, his influence continues to shape us every day, and I will do my best to cherish his values and make sure that his spirit remains present in our lives.
What does the average weekend look like for you? Maybe you go for a hike, or maybe you just relax. Well, for my Papa Duck, it was a whole operation, and always jam-packed with his favorite things. Most weekends consisted of watching at least 2 football games, 1 basketball game, watching a whole golf tournament while playing a round or 2, and on top of all that, he might throw in some fishing here and there. Papa always loved the University of Tennessee, or UT, and he would watch their sports religiously. His favorite color was orange, obviously, because that was UT's main color. And he was decked out in UT swag every Saturday. My papa was always hilarious and confident, maybe a little too confident, especially when it came to golf. It wasn't uncommon for him to make the most outlandish bet ever, like 20 bucks says this ball goes 300. My dad loved hearing this because it meant he was going to make 20 bucks. Because, well, that ball was not going 300 yards. Even though, sadly, my papa has passed away, my family still keeps these weekly traditions of wearing orange. Actually, my family still keeps these weekly traditions of wearing orange and cramming in as many sports events as possible. And I strive to be just like my papa one day, funny, confident, and laid back. One story my dad told me about Papa was in 1976, and it was during the Super Bowl. My dad, being 4 at the time, was really confused and didn't really know what was going on. But Papa Duck and Grammy Trisha both said to Dad, "Go for the team with the star." Papa was never as much of a Cowboys fan as he was a Tennessee fan, but the love was still there. For my dad, on the other hand, that one sentence changed his life forever, and mine too. Go Cowboys. That phrase has brought me loads of joy and, well, disappointment. Golf was also a huge part of Papa's life. He lived on a golf course, had a membership, and played multiple times a week. Papa even had his own nickname that he gave himself, William R. Parr, even though he definitely was not Scratch. Oh. Papa had tons of other hobbies too. He absolutely loved dancing, which was instilled in him since he was a child. When he was really young, he was put into all sorts of dance classes, including ballet with his 3 sisters. As he grew older, he matured into all sorts of different types of dance, like tap dance, ballroom dance, rock and roll dance, and pop dance. This dancing also made Papa a pretty big fan of pop and rock and roll music. Although Papa might have been distracted doing important things on the weekends, he didn't let this get in the way of his work. Papa Duck was always a super hard worker. He was a pharmacist, and that created some fun memories. One story that I still find hard to believe today happened at the beginning of his career. He was filling prescriptions as he normally did, and then a familiar person showed up to pick up the prescription that he had filled. The man was average height, dark-haired, and handsome. He knew exactly who it was when he walked in. It was the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Boy, did that make my papa excited. He absolutely loved rock and roll music, and now he had not only met, but was filling prescriptions for his idol. Although Papa was a hard worker, he never let anything come before his family. I have seen numerous old photos of my papa with my dad, and I have heard countless stories. And from all of them, I have gathered that my papa was an amazing dad. He wasn't just a good dad, though. He was an amazing papa. Papa lived on the East Coast in North Carolina, and he hated that he could not hang out with his grandchildren as much as he wanted to. So much so that he got a per diem job in Reno for 3 months out of the year so he could be closer to us and spend more time with us. You may be wondering why I keep referring to Papa as Papa Duck, and the reason I call him that is because he could talk like a duck. And I mean, he was actually pretty good at it. He could make the most amazing quacks ever and sounded exactly like a duck. Although my dad says that this is the only reason for the nickname, I believe that there's one more reason why. Papa Duck could water ski, and I do not just mean he knew how to. I mean, it was like second nature for him. He could do all sorts of tricks, like going on one leg and lying down almost flat on the water at the same time. It was almost like he actually was a duck. He was even so good at it that he bought his own boat about the same time of his first car, so he could ski more. The last and most important thing I want to talk about is Papa's faith in God. Papa Duck was raised a Christian and always loved God. He was first exposed to Adventism through my Grammy Trisha. And when he started liking her, he tried learning as much about Adventism to be more like her and have something to talk about. Over time, he became highly involved in the Adventist church, doing children's stories and helping out with Pathfinders. Christ was always Papa's main priority in life, and he remained a Christian for the rest of it. Papa Duck was an amazing person. I wish he could have been here today, but unfortunately, he passed away on January 4, 2020. I don't know what exactly my papa would like to be remembered as, but I know that I will always remember him as loving, caring, hardworking, laid back, funny, confident, risk-taking, sports-loving, and most importantly, Christ-loving. Papa, thank you for always being an amazing grandparent, and I can't wait to see you again someday in heaven. But until then, go Vols.
My grandfather, Louis Cuccia, is an extraordinary person. He is kind, loving, incredibly patient, and has a love of nature matched by few. He shows his love by spending time with others, even though he has an almost unending to-do list. He also has a fun sense of humor and the most incredible laugh I've ever heard. Like many grandpas, he likes to pass on wise words of advice and useful skills. One of his favorite quotes is, "We can't all be right, but we could all be wrong." Grampy, thank you for taking the time to teach me cool things and pass on your wisdom. I am very grateful that I can live very close to you and spend lots of time with you. It's unfortunate now that Zach and I have less time due to high school and we no longer go to your house once a week. But I will always remember those days after piano practice when we would go over to your house and I would show you the piano songs I learned, or we could go fishing down with you at the pond. My grandpa has many hobbies. He loves keeping birds, going fishing, working on his orchard, and spending time with his family. My grandpa does so much, I don't know how he fits it all in one day. From his various hobbies to the care and upkeep of his 12 acres of land, most of which is covered in different types of fruit trees. The birds my grandpa keeps are pigeons and doves. He has large coops of them where he has many different shapes, colors, and sizes of birds. He used to have a small business where he would release them at weddings. Another hobby of my grandpa's is trees. He has many different types of fruit trees, but he has mostly mandarin trees. He likes to do something called grafting with these trees. Grafting is attaching the shoot of one tree to the trunk of a different tree, which is kind of weird to see because once it is grown, it produces flowers and fruit that are different than the rest of the tree. He has many hobbies that I wish I could mention, but in the interest of time, I will not. The past 2 summers, my brother and I have been working for my grandpa at his property. One hot day, we had to fix all the irrigation, and my grandpa turned it on so we could see where the leaks were. It wasn't It was quite a ways to the on and off switch, so it would take forever to turn the water on and off every time we patched the system, so we just left it on. If you have ever tried to put a spray nozzle on a hose before while it was running, you get a pretty good picture of how that went. There are also some other shenanigans going on. Me and my brother would accidentally point the irrigation lines at each other. Soon enough, we were both soaking and our grandpa was laughing at us. Another fond memory with my grandpa was when he took me out fishing. Normally, Zach, Grampy, and I would all go together. But this time, Grampy made sure to take us separately. When you have a sibling, it can often feel like you're vying for attention from those you admire. But my grandpa understands that, and he took us separately so we could spend time without any frustrating sibling rivalries. I think that is a very incredible skill that my grandpa has, understanding and remembering what it is like to be a kid. I don't think I ever told him how thankful I am for that trip. Grampy, thank you for being incredibly patient and forgiving to me. You always have a funny joke or a really long conversation just around the corner. And I enjoy them both, as long as said conversation does not exceed an hour. But really, Grampy, thank you for being the best grandpa I could ever ask for.
Imagine watching your colleagues and 271 other people crash to the ground and perish, knowing that that could have been you. My grandpa, Junichi Funada, is quite the expert at facing adversity. From almost dying in an airplane crash to becoming the vice president of Yamaha Music, he has lived a fulfilling life full of challenges and contentment. Growing up Japanese-born in Manchuria, China, brought my grandpa many fun childhood memories. Starting at a very young age, my grandpa was always active, from chasing wildlife in his suburban backyard to playing baseball in the summer to even skiing. During this time, my grandpa found his love for music. Starting piano lessons in the 5th grade brought much joy and excitement to him. Some of my earliest memories with my grandpa are of me sitting at middle seat while my grandpa teaches me the basics of piano. In school, he was an honors student and was involved with many leadership roles. Eventually, he became the Associated Student Body President his senior year. These experiences were just the beginning of him becoming a leader and helped shape his path for the future. Growing up, I was told many stories of my grandfather's father, my great-grandfather, Tasuki, a strong Japanese man. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, Tasuki was drafted by the Japanese and was soon captured by the Chinese. His execution was to be the morning after China's victory in the war. But due to the immense amount of love and kindness he showed to the local Chinese, the morning of his scheduled execution, a Chinese soldier secretly switched uniforms with him, saving my great-grandfather's life and sacrificing his own so Tasuki could return home. If my great-grandfather had not shown such kindness, even to those who were called his enemy, my grandpa would have never existed, and I would not be standing here today. I believe my great-grandfather's kindness has carried over to my grandpa, who is one of the most selfless people I know. After graduating college, my grandpa attended Japanese Missionary College for his first 2 years. It was there where he met the love of his life, Yoshiko. After finishing his 2 years there, he came to the United States to attend Walla Walla University. During his years there, he faced many hardships and was racially discriminated against. It was after the Second World War that so many American citizens were still bitter towards Japanese. People would look at him weirdly and mistreat him. One particular time, he and some friends were at a restaurant, and the waitress only took his Caucasian friend's orders, but refused to take his. His friends felt awful for the way he was mistreated, and proceeded to complain to the restaurant. But by then, it was too late. The damage had already been done. Despite all the adversity he faced, he soon became the first ever Japanese-born student to graduate from Walla Walla University. Soon after his graduation, he married Yoshiko, and they had their first son, Ray, who brought a bit of excitement and hope into their lives. After graduating Walla Walla University with a master's degree in business administrations, he rekindled his love for music and started working at the Yamaha Music School in San Francisco. During this time, he would go on many business trips all throughout the world as Yamaha Music's import manager. One particular time, he was making a connecting flight back home from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Chicago with 3 other coworkers. Their flight from Michigan had arrived late into Chicago, so they had 2 choices: run in hopes of making their connecting flight or stay back and catch the next flight home. My grandpa and another colleague decided to stay back, while the other 2 dashed off. Minutes later, they stood at the window and watched American Airlines Flight 191 take off and then crash to the ground. All 271 passengers on board perished, including the 2 colleagues who had just been with them moments ago. To this day, my grandpa continues to thank God for protecting him. If God hadn't spared his life, my father, who had not yet been born, would have never existed, which means I would have never existed. After many successful years with Yamaha Music Corporations, it wasn't long until my grandpa eventually became the vice president and general manager of all of Yamaha Music in the United States. It was with Yamaha that he was privileged to meet and have dinner with many famous musicians and groups, such as Stevie Wonder, Toto, Louis Armstrong, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, and many others. After 47 monumental years dedicated to Yamaha, he has received many awards from Yamaha for all his accomplishments. Who would have thought that his 5th grade love for music would have resulted in a lifetime full of many memories spent with one of the biggest music corporations in the world? In 2016, Yoshiko, my grandma, faced many health disabilities, but my grandpa stood faithfully by her side, taking incredible care of her. Unfortunately, 3 years later, she passed away. Although not everything in life is always that joyful, my grandpa always reminds us to trust in God and his timing. As of right now, my grandpa is living his best life in tropical Orange County, with a garden to nurture and the Anaheim Angels to watch. He is very appreciative of life. He continues to start his mornings walking 3 miles and volunteering at his church. When asked how he wanted to be remembered, he said, "I want to be remembered as a kind person who is faithful to God, and I believe he has done just that. He wishes for his grandchildren to live healthy, happy lives filled with God." I feel very privileged to call Junichi Funada my grandpa.
I cannot be prouder of these kids. You guys were amazing tonight. Give them another hand. Thank you so much for coming out. I know it was hard in the dark, in the rain, but we appreciate you being here. There's just a couple of instructions I have before we part. The first thing is, as we all go to clean up, I'm wanting you to save on the tables. If you can save the bows that are on the tables, we're gonna keep these for future years. So we'll collect these. The water you're going to pour out of the candles, but the manzanita that's in those in the glasses, if you can leave the manzanita in the glasses, because we're going to see if we can also save that for future years. All of the plasticware, everything, all of that goes in the trash, and then we'll just, of course, collect napkins in one spot, tablecloths in another, and then students already know, so parents, they know they're not allowed to leave until they have checked out with me. So the more of us that get involved, last year, I think it took us only about 45 minutes to get everything cleaned up. So if everybody works together, we should be able to do it very, very quickly. But the last thing that I'm going to ask for is I would like to ask all of the grandparents and students, and if your grandparent has passed, then I would like you to get your mom or your dad and have them come up, and we want to have a picture with all of the grandparents and everyone up front first.
Before you do that, we want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. We know this is a work of love, that you do this, why you do this, isn't it? And we've all learned so much and are closer as a group in a class, but our kids especially have just benefited so much from this, and we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say this, it is a lot of work. You know that on the parent end, because I think I've had some of you that have gone, this is a lot of work, Laura Lee, what are you doing to our kids? But it is one of the most rewarding things. And a few nights ago, when everything was really piling up, I come to the end of this night and I go, okay, yes, we're doing this again. But a few nights ago, I looked at my daughter, I said, I think this might be the last Roots celebration ever. And she looked at me, and she last year actually did her project on 2 of her grandmothers, and she looked at me and she said, Mom, absolutely not, you can never give this up. So if I have my family telling me I can't give it up, I think we're gonna be doing this for a while. So, so those of you who have younger kids, you know what you have to look forward to in the future. So come on up, grandparents and kids, and we want to get a picture of you, and then we can start the cleaning up process. Thank you again so much.